Concord City Councilor, and you have been, by some people's description, a thorn in the side of the golf course establishment in this city.
Yes, yes.
I want to start with the simplest version of the question. Like, how did Beaver Meadow end up in your crosshair? Like, how did this all start?
I mean, I hadn't ever been to the golf course, even though, we'd lived in Concord for over, 14 years at that point, and or, 12 years. So I think I went out there, but I didn't think much. It's the golf course. Quest for more money. Oh, we have to have this for the golf course. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for irrigation every year. And I was like, geez, why do we need to focus on it?
For the people who may be new to how city budgets work, now, can you explain what a special revenue fund is and why it matters to that golf was converted to
Yes.
one in 2018? How does that work?
And I had to go. So I started in 2022, and the golf fund was already special revenue. And the way it was explained was, well, special revenue, they cover their own expenses, except when they need help, that's when the city steps in.
Mhm.
So, like major projects would be taken care of by taxpayers. So, these hundreds of thousands of dollars for irrigation, that was going to be picked up by taxpayers. So I kind of went back into the history of it. And we have a great room in the library, the Concord room, which you can go and look at the physical agendas, budgets, read through the minutes. It's really helpful. And I saw that Concord, the golf fund was always running a deficit. It always relied on taxpayers. And during the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee, they decided, well, it looks bad that the golf fund is running a deficit. So let's make it a special revenue and have taxpayers pick up the big ticket items. And, I was reading old minutes, and in 2018, there was one counselor who was also a thorn because he was asking questions.
Mhm.
And he was like, I'm not comfortable with this because this is hiding the expenses.
Mhm.
So if the city is infusing the golf fund with money like they had been
Mhm.
for a long, like at least from 2013 on, they were infusing it. They were just giving money because they didn't want it to run a deficit. He says, if all the major projects are being pushed off to taxpayers, that it's not obvious,
Mhm.
that they're not covering their costs. And he was the only one who voted against it. Everybody else voted for it. And so from that point on, and what I thought was very interesting was from that point on, once it became a special revenue fund and it was not expected to cover its own costs, it was not an enterprise fund, it was a special revenue. All of a sudden, the projects ramped up. Same holes again, or we were investing in covering those same holes. And I raised the question during budget, like, wait a minute, we've already appropriated money to do those, to irrigate those holes. And one counselor who had been on for, who's the longest serving counselor, interrupted me with like a parliamentary, procedure thing where he was like, move the question. And the
So what
mayor's
does move the question mean?
move the question is when so many people have talked that you've beaten the horse. You're like beating a dead horse. Like, let's move on already. But I had just asked the question about why are we irrigating the same holes again? And another counselor said, hey, can you tell us about this? As the finance director was answering the question, he said, well, I can go hole by hole. All of a sudden, the longest serving counselor said, move the question. You're supposed to, now, because that means you stop
Yeah.
talking, you're supposed to vote on it. It's supposed to be a 2/3 vote where, because everybody has to agree, yeah, I'm done talking. Most of us are ready to move on. There was no vote.
Mhm.
The mayor immediately said, the question has been moved. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't realize that he had not done the right thing. I didn't realize at the time that we should have voted on, is it appropriate to move the question? Nope, he just moved it. And I was like, this feels weird. Why are we doing that? And then
Now,
yeah.
before we get into the numbers, I read those two mission statements in the open. The
Mhm.
1994 language specifically says the course should operate without supplementing revenues with tax dollars, and the 2008 version drops that like entirely. So,
Yeah.
when did you first notice that change?
To old agendas. And and it was like the text, like as you're looking through old agendas, things look the same, but I there was like something looked different. Like, wait a minute, before there was all this text about the mission statement, and all of a sudden it was like one or two lines. And I'm like, and then I was looking about, well, when did that change? And it was, like, why did that change? And that was before it became a special revenue fund. That was 10 years before it became a special revenue fund, that
Huh.
the language was changed. And I looked back and I think just changed on its own.
And
Like, yeah,
nobody could say why or
no, no, just quietly, like it just changed. All of a sudden, the focus was not on running it as a business where it covers its own expenses. It was just on,
okay,
oh,
let's get into the whole Nancy Drew bit for a minute because this is what you're really good at.
I love it.
Okay, let's talk about the money trail. So, if you go to, let's get
Okay,
into the money trail. So, you've done a lot of investigative reporting from within Concord City as a city councilor.
right.
So, no wonder you're getting no support at all.
Yes, and factual. And I also was seeing weird things, like all of a sudden the mission statement changed. So what was it like before? And then I was continually putting money into this. And that's where I thought was very strange, that if you keep putting money into it, and meanwhile, there are conversations where I think it was like in 2017, the finance director had said other golf courses, other municipal courses were closing. And
Mhm.
they said, oh, well, this is our opportunity to bring in those
Small group of
customers.
people who actually care about golf, and everybody else is a working class or just trying to make ends meet, don't really care about it. They
Right.
don't belong
Well,
to the country club. So is it a
yes,
class issue or
yes. Well, there is, and that's just it. There is a country club
yeah.
on the other side of the river. So, people go there and people go to these other golf courses. So I feel like we need to play to our strengths. We have a like two, three rivers in Concord, and those other towns don't have that. Why aren't we playing up something like that? We have the state capital. Like, I didn't understand why we were trying to be like these other places that had these fancier golf courses. So we wanted to be as nice as those golf courses, but way cheaper so that we could bring people. But it was taxpayers that were subsidizing this.
This is almost like a great this will make a great like sequel to Caddyshack, right? Caddyshack 3.
Right, right.
It's all about greed and corporate donors and this and that.
Mhm.
So let's get
Mhm.
into the forensics because you did all the hard, heavy lifting on this
It
one.
was like the calendar year would go from July 1st until June 30th.
Mhm.
But like usually around September, like the finance committee or whatever, or city council would say, okay, the finance director would recommend, we need to transfer this money in, and we'll make it retroactive. So the books would look like they had this, they were, cushioned. They were
Okay,
not.
so in 2013, the actual was
Yeah,
28,260.
right. And I found that by going forward into like the 2015 or 2016
Mhm.
budget, to look back and say, okay, well, this is what they were projecting. That's what I love about the archives and the old budgets, because you can be like, okay, this was their plan. How did it play out? What happened? And what did they not do? They never questioned it. They never said, why are we, except the one guy who they accused, of like, oh, you just hate this. And then when I came on the council and I started questioning it, they thought that I was just his puppet, which is hilarious. Like, oh, other people aren't going to question this. So yeah, 2013, I saw the money, and then I would go forward a few years and I would see, yeah, consistently.
Got
And
2014, you got 28,000, about the same, but a couple hundred, maybe like $100 short.
right, right. But
What?
what's interesting is in 2001, the clubhouse was renovated and expanded. And
Mhm.
at that time, they were like, oh, this is going to bring in more people, more revenue. It's going to be a four-season facility. And it just kept losing. And in 2013, through 2017, they couldn't make their debt service payment on the clubhouse renovation.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, so I'm thinking if I had been on the council, I would have been like, all right, we need to change something because we are consistently losing money. But that's not what they did.
Mhm.
They added a position. They hired a golf pro in 2015 and a full time. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? If you're consistently losing money. So between 2013 and 2017, taxpayers paid off the clubhouse debt service and they added a golf pro. And it was just, and
That
then
would
there was,
tick me off as a homeowner in Concord, as it is like the tax bill is outrageous in New Hampshire, but to know where it's going to some bourgeois country club who needs a golf pro,
yeah. And
let
I
them
and I
take,
I was not seeing the golf pro doing
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
There weren't free programs at the golf course, and then when I found out that the golf pros were keeping 85% of the revenue, and I asked, does anyone else do that? Do the lifeguards keep revenue? When there's a Parks and Rec program, do those instructors keep the revenue? No, and it was just very
And
strange.
it's very last finance committee meeting where they seem very eager to shut you down. Anytime the word golf, they're like, Stacy, enough with the golf, you know? And this is what
Right. It's
so
yeah.
much crap underneath this rug. And you totally found like you found it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, because what is the debt on? And I asked for about 3 years ago, and that's when I was like, oh my God, there's so many golf projects and there are so few people using it. So I calculated the projects from fiscal year 2022 to 2026 on just taxpayers. It's 764,000, over $764,000 in just debt service. And as a special revenue fund, the golf fund doesn't pay that. Taxpayers are paying that.
So the total known debt exposure is over $11 million
Yes.
in
Because
taxpayer money.
yes, because what that is I looked at the debt booklet. It's like if you look at your credit card statement or something,
Yeah.
and it shows you, how much was bonded and what the interest rate is and what the interest payments are and how long you're paying it off. So taxpayers will be paying over $11 million through 2046 for the golf course.
Now, have you ever considered running for mayor of Concord? Okay. So let's walk through this. I got the budget documents in front of me going back to fiscal year 2013. And every single year there's a line item, transfer in from general fund. So walk me through
Oh,
what you see. Walk me through this because that's
okay. So the general fund, that is taxpayer dollars. That's just, like we're using general fund for certain things. So a transfer in means that that's money coming in from the general fund from taxpayers to this specific project. Now, typically, you would see transfer out. And in later years, you'll see transfer out for like overhead because, they don't do their own books or, for electricity or transfer in from the general fund is that amount of money just to make the golf fund look like it is breaking even.
okay. So in 2018, the city budgeted zero in general fund transfers for 2018. Now, the actual number was $48,000. Now,
Mhm.
how does that happen and who approves that in real time? Like,
So that it's this convoluted series of actions. So for that, there's so many other projects that would benefit the city, the taxpayers, than irrigation on a golf course. It just Yeah.
And then in 2019, $62,750. Now that's the peak. What was happening that year?
Well, so, and that's just, I mean, I think so. They had been running a regular deficit.
Yeah.
And and it's like let's see what was happening, in the golf course. Well, they were working on irrigation. They wanted to have irrigation, and also that's when there was a facility assessment done. They were going to redo the bathrooms, redo the pro shop windows. And the former mayor, Jim Boulay, said, let's imagine the golf course 50 years into the future. We have to redo the parking lot. We have to redo the windows and bathrooms.
Have in the general fund transfers roughly $330,000 flowing from the city general budget into golf operations between 2013 and 2021. Now you separate from the debt, and the debt, the actual loan obligations the city took on, those
Two
go
things.
to over $11 million when you add interest. Is that
Yeah.
the number?
So yeah, so you're right. There's two different revenue streams. So there's the money from the general fund going into the golf operational fund,
Mhm.
and then there are taxpayers paying the debt service on all these golf projects. But then there's another piece that still Nancy Drewing, and that's the recreation reserve. And that is where I haven't been able to find where the money went.
So there's a reserve budget on top of everything else, and nobody
Yeah.
nobody wants to give you anything about it.
No, no. So I only really learned about it last year when the city manager said, oh, we're going to do this. He put the golf clubhouse in the budget
Yeah.
ahead of everything else, ahead of a new police station, ahead of a middle school, ahead of a library renovation, all ahead of all these things. That was the first thing in the budget. And yeah, so he said, we're going to use the recreation reserve to pay the debt service.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, can we use the recreation? It's called recreation. Can we use it for anything?
Yeah.
Because the skate park, they need a match. Can we use it for other recreational needs? And he was like, sure, yeah, we can use it for anything. Well, then I took my classes and I realized, no, you can't. It's very statutorily, you have to use it for whatever the fund was created. And the recreation reserve was created for the citywide community center, not a golf course, not a golf clubhouse. So then I started looking at payments that had come out of the recreation reserve, and it did not go to the citywide community center.
Mm.
And some of them I couldn't find where the money went. I just that it was withdrawn.
And
And
there's no itemized anything where it went,
no, it just says budget,
budget.
which is kind of strange.
Yeah,
So
you and I can go shopping and just put budget and give
right,
you a bunch of
right.
money, right?
It's like if you have $40,000 debt on your credit card, and you're like Christmas or birthday, like you kind of want it itemized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I questioned it. They said, "Oh, well, council approved it. It was in the budget detail. It shows." But according to state law, you have to write a waiver. You have to say, this is where the money is. It's going out for this purpose, and this is how much. So you're documenting, because the reserves are made up of taxpayer dollars. So it always comes back to being able to be transparent and show taxpayers where their money is going.
The council approved 138,000 in fiscal year 2018, 310,000 for 2019, and 310,000 in 2020. And those are real votes and real decisions.
Yeah.
What was the stated justification at the time?
Irrigation. That was it.
That was
And it
it?
was like every year it was like a different set of holes. And I thought, and the budget will show out years. So it
Mhm.
looked like, oh, it's only going on for a few years, but it started in 2018 and it kept going until 2026. So for 8 years, we're spending hundreds of dollars each year on irrigation.
Mm.
Like, it just doesn't make
And then
sense.
the irrigation debt that runs all the way from 2018 to 2026, and the
Yep.
clubhouse debt goes
Yep.
into the 2026.
Yep.
fiscal year. So this is not history. These are current obligations on a
Hmm.
golf course that the
Yeah.
city promised in 1994 would not require $1 of taxpayer support.
Right. Right. And what makes me so angry is the taxpayers were not included in this decision. They weren't, did taxpayers want the golf course to be the priority project? That's what bothers me because there are so many other things, that are, I think, are priorities that we could have spent money on. And people are really struggling. I mean, this is federal government, state government are making decisions that are impacting people financially. We shouldn't be adding to the problem. We should be working closely to figure out how can we support our residents.
Absolutely. And Stacey, I want to talk about the current budget, fiscal year 2026, because this isn't ancient history. This is happening like right now. The Finance Committee put together a list of cuts to bring the town's tax rate down. Now, walk me through that cut list.
Coordinate with other councils. Like I had some ideas. I created a survey because I felt like, wait a minute, we are planning all these multi-million dollar projects. What do the taxpayers really want? What do they value? What's important to them? Where should their money, if we're going to prioritize, what should it be? And you know what? And it was so encouraging because, like, one of the top things, it was like environmental stewardship. People want trash cans in parks, like, because they want to keep their parks clean. People have dogs. They want to be able to throw away the dog poop in the trash can. Like that's right there. So, and passive recreation, which is just like walking in a park. And according to our budget, the Parks and Rec director said it costs $7,000 to maintain 340 acres as a park, as just like passive recreation. Walking on a trail or something like that.
And then it cut Hoopla, which is the public library
Yes,
audiobooks.
audiobooks that can be converted into different languages. And that's what was cut. So, yeah, so the golf fund is so separate and special. I was like, you know what? They have money. I suggested the debt service that is levied on taxpayers, we can transfer that over to the golf fund. And then that will cut more than 1.5% of the city manager had recommended a 5.5% increase.
Yeah.
So 1% increase, I think it was like 560,000, something along those lines. And I was like, well, if the debt service, we can cut that out of the debt service,
What about the
have the
FORE?
golf fund pay for it. But no, the city manager, not only are taxpayers expected to cover like most of that, it was, we're also going to use the recreation reserve to pay that as well. And I was rather than use it on other recreation needs, which was just crazy. So we were all trying to get down to, really trim the budget. And the city manager was like, well, if you get lower than 2%, then it's not going to be the same Concord. We're going to have to cut pools. We're going to have to cut libraries. One counselor said, oh, it's about 5 positions. I would start there. But the city manager would not suggest it. He said it's going to have to come from police and fire. Where are we going to trim? So, we said, okay, we'll let the city manager identify cuts in every department. So I'm thinking, okay, every department is going to take a hit. We eliminated bag leaf service. So I'm like, yeah, it's tough for everyone. We'll cut everything, cut what we can. And that's like 99,000. And a lot of people, rely on that service. So I was like, okay, this is going to be hard. And then I looked at the list. So we said, go ahead and make those cuts. Came back to us. And this is like less than 20 minutes before we vote on it that we get this list. And one of them is Hoopla, is like $38,000. We're cutting that from the library, which serves, and I looked it up in the budget, that's an audio book program. 100,000 people downloaded material from the library last year. So I don't know how much of that was audio. I know I use at least once a week. I'm listening to an audiobook through the library. It's amazing. But
We
it's like,
We did the fact checking from your own report, and it's $38,000.
Yeah, $38,000 is, and that's 38,000. And then I looked to see what stayed in the budget.
Yeah.
So nothing was cut from the golf fund.
So
Nothing. So they have their budget where, and the city manager even recommended adding money. Like he recommended $20,000 for overtime. Or no, I think it was 10,000 for overtime, 20,000 for additional temporary workers, adding a machine that picks up golf balls for $5,000. These are really necessary. Like I don't see it. So we had like maybe a half an hour. We got this list, and it was like removing that from the library, cutting bags. Oh, and then $4,000 from the UNH sustainability fellow who
mhm.
was going to be doing an inventory of our trees. And it's like $4,000 where the pro-am golf tournaments is $3,200. I just don't understand.
So what was not cut was the grounds and horticulture,
Yeah,
which is like 55,000 in chemicals, 3,000 for flowers and shrubs. So it goes
right.
up to 92,000. Then we have professional development, including 3,200 in tournament entry fees
Yeah,
for the golf pros. I mean, who is this for,
right.
right?
For two people, right? I think they only have two golf pros.
And
So
$5,000 for a ball picker.
yeah, yep,
A
yep.
ball picker.
I know. I just don't understand it. And it was like, and the meeting, there was, no bathroom breaks. It was like, go, you can just get up, and even though there are votes happening, you're going to have to just go. It started at 5:30 and we didn't end until after 11 p.m.
And
And
you're an
it's,
elected official. I mean, that's like doing jury duty after
mhm,
work. It's god awful.
it was, yeah. And then, so it's afterwards, you're just exhausted.
Yeah.
And, we had received all this testimony from people begging us, like, please, like cut the budget. I can't afford this. And we had other counselors, the longest serving one, who said, hey, if you don't like the services, if you don't like the services and being here, then you can go somewhere else. You can go to
Who said
Franklin
that?
Field. And it was like,
Who said that?
that was Counselor Keach.
Oh,
Counselor Fred Keach. And then the mayor was like, well, yep, this is what you pay for. This is Concord. And I thought, how many people really think that we should be investing this much money in maintaining the golf course? Because the golf course, according to the budget, is going to run a deficit. It's not, it's going to lose $121,000
so
before the
I
end of the year.
I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly. The city cut the library's audiobook service, and
Yep.
it kept a sustainability internship.
And cut the sustainability internship.
It
Yep.
cut it. It cut your leaf pickup. And in the same budget cycle, it kept $3,200 in golf tournament entry fees for the course of two pros.
Yep.
Like, and then added $46,000 in new golf course requests. Is that
Yep.
accurate?
That is yep, that is absolutely accurate and crazy.
And who made these calls? Is it the golf course management or the city
It's the
manager, the
city
council,
manager. This is the city manager's budget. This is it.
the deputy city manager, Brian LeBrun?
Yep. He's the
LeBrun?
finance director. Yep.
Did I say that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. He said at the Golf Advisory Committee meeting that any criticism should be directed at city administration, not golf staff. So, by that logic, the city administration's priority structure is not the golf pros. The administration chose this? Like, what is that?
Yeah. And I was really surprised by that because I went to that golf meeting and I was like, maybe they just don't know that this is not the oldest golf course. So I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. So I sent them the information that I had found in the book, Architects of Golf. And I also wanted to know, hey,
Who is that book by?
it's by Jeffrey Cornish. And Jeffrey Cornish is like, well, he's done so many golf courses. He after the city So Beaver Meadow was originally a private course
Mhm.
until like around the 30s, and then they moved across the river and became Concord Country Club. But they sold it to the city, and it was just 9 holes.
Mhm.
And in 1960s, in the 60s, the mayor, the last strong mayor, Herbie Quinn, he got Land Water Conservation Fund monies, and it was a federal grant that you can get. And so he added on to the golf course. And what that did is it says all this property, this 169 acres, has to be used for public recreation in perpetuity.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be a golf course. It just has to be used for public recreation.
Mhm.
That's it. So, and it was just 9 holes. It was 9 holes up until then. And then Jeffrey Cornish came in. He was hired, and he designed the additional 9 holes to make it an 18-hole golf course back then.
Okay, so the book is The Architects of Golf by
Yep.
Jeffrey S. Cornish and Ronald E. Whitten, published by HarperCollins, and it documents that Wumbeck Golf Course in New Hampshire opened in 1896, 1 year before Beaver Meadow, which opened in
Yeah.
1897, which means Beaver Meadow has been marketed as the oldest municipal golf course in New Hampshire based on a claim that is simply not accurate.
Correct.
So, what
Yeah. And
happened when
I,
you
I
raised that
think
in the meeting?
Wombeck is even, yeah. So I raised that at the meeting. And I also said, at that same meeting, um, there's all these positions, and I had noticed that there was damage in the building. It looked like a golf club had hit the wall, and there was sheetrock spilling out, and I'd taken a picture. And but I noticed the golf positions. There's a director of operations and head golf pro. There was a course and facilities manager and a building and grounds superintendent.
Mhm.
And I was like, out of those three positions, who, and I was like, and they're kind of redundant. Like you have facilities and you have building, and then you have the director. And I was like, who's responsible for maintenance?
Commentator named Mark Cohen said the committee had been under constant attack for the past year undeservedly. The character it's and characterized critics as people who don't seem to be interested in making things better, just attacking. That's a quote. And Deputy City Manager Brian LeBrun said the criticism was unfounded. Now, what is your response to that characterization?
I mean, that is shoot the messenger, right? Like if
Yeah.
somebody keeps asking uncomfortable questions, rather than answer the questions, rather than be honest about it, it's easier to just paint that person as the problem. For so long, I had people say, "Oh, you just hate golf. You hate golf," and I was like, "No, I just want to know where the money is going and why we're not maintaining a building and why more people
Stacey,
aren't using this."
the audience wants to know, do you have anything against golf? Just to put it down.
No, I just, I think I'd be really bored playing golf. It's just, yeah, I'm that it's not my scene. Maybe some people, what I don't like about it is how much land it eats up and the small number of people that can use that land at that same time. Like it is minimal. I think maybe 200 people can be playing golf over 169 acres at one time. That's just crazy.
Also, I'm going to bring you in for something else. There's also a note in the same minutes, a committee member named Charlie Randall said the golf course needed a public relations person. He volunteered to do it. Now, what does it tell you about an institution when its first response to documented criticism is to hire a PR guy
Yeah.
or a
Well,
person?
and you know what else is in the budget? In this budget, $2,000 for Facebook ads.
I'm sorry.
I know. I know.
Facebook ads for people who just can't go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what we're spending. So we're cutting things that, would benefit the public. But we're going to make sure that the golf fund is flush so that they can pay for their Facebook ads and they can play in their tournaments. Um, yeah.
You brought a motion forward on the golf course. Now, tell me what you proposed and what happened.
So I proposed that the debt service
Hmm.
that we are currently paying just this year. And it's not all the debt service.
Mhm.
It's only what I could really calculate. It was from fiscal year 2022 irrigation all the way through the clubhouse, including the clubhouse design and construction. And I felt like that should be, the golf fund should have to pay that. And it, so I recommended that the 764,000, plus that taxpayers are expected to pay this year through their taxes, that should come out of the golf fund. Fell flat. Nobody seconded my motion.
Of course not. Troublemaker.
I know. Right. Right. Oh, I'm not supposed to mention golf. How dare you? I constantly hear that you need to collaborate with people. You need to work with people. Well, they're pushing the notion that collaboration is agreeing with the golf course, promoting the golf course, when I don't see that at
Kind of
all.
makes you wonder what happens at that golf course that is so important, right? What's going on there? So
Yeah, where we need to cut audiobooks first.
yeah,
You
that's
know?
pretty twisted.
Mm.
So, what would a reasonable path forward actually look like? Not ideally, but realistically, given the current political environment in Concord.
I think having people we have a city council meeting on Monday, and the finance director is recommending more money go to the golf course from reserves.
Hmm.
The golf fund does not contribute any money to the capital reserves. I actually asked that question specifically during finance because I wanted the rest of the general fund, and which would go towards the reserves. And yet on Monday, I think it's $22,000
Mhm.
from the reserves to the golf course. Counselors, kind of say, no, we're going to rescind this. We could just say no. I mean, I think we need to listen to our residents now, and we need residents to write letters, to show up, and also social media. People need to document it. They need to write letters to the editor. They need to blast it out on social media, talk to people, because it's one thing if on the council everyone says, "Oh, Councilor Brown, she's the only problem." When the public is saying, "No, this is a problem. I use Hoopla. I rely on
Yeah.
my leaves being picked up." I already had people today tell me, well, I'm going to burn all the leaves on my land. And another person said, I'm just going to rake them into the middle of the street and it'll be the city's problem. So
There you go.
we're creating problems by not talking with our residents about what's important to them and how they want their money spent.
What can an ordinary Concord resident do with all of this information? Are there public hearings, budget
Yes.
hearings?
Yep.
What's the actual mechanism for a non-golfer to have a voice on the funds that are being managed or
Yeah.
mismanaged?
I think that there actually is a golf advisory committee coming up. I think it's on the 11th. I'll
Oh,
have to double check. So they can look at concordnh.gov, the calendar, to see when the golf advisory committee meeting is. On Monday, there's a city council meeting, starts at 7, and there's a public hearing for exactly the pulling money from the recreation reserve for the golf course. So people can absolutely testify. People need to testify regularly. I mean, just keep the pressure on, get it in writing.
I saw it at the last finance committee. There was a guy with a sign that wanted to know where his money's going.
Yes.
And we need more of that. Whoever that guy
Yes.
is, kudos.
Yes.
And the
And you know
money.
what? I want to say thank you, Gracie, because you doing this, helping me get this message out is so huge. Like I can do all this research, and I even do a newsletter, but like what was so frustrating was not having the time to get the word out. Like I do better talking to people, like
Yeah.
talking to you helps. Like you can ask me questions and I can answer it, and that helps, but like sitting down and writing it and being thoughtful, and that takes time, and it's frustrating because I feel like I'm struggling trying to get that information out. So I am
Thank you.
so grateful for you for helping to get this information out because
We're going to have you on every Friday just to kind of keep Concord
there's so
on
much.
our
It's so
toes.
fun. It's so fun. It's so interesting. We need our own like little, per investigative counselor group
We do.
because yeah, there's a lot and
There's a
I
lot.
need help. I absolutely need help. Like your skills are fantastic
And
for
the
this.
people who are listening have a skill set. So it's like,
Yes.
it's like we have our own little army now of people who are
Yes.
actually investigating and
Yep.
taking the time to write to know requests. It's a really exciting time.
Yeah, even people who have the time to sit in the audience with a sign that says,
Yes.
I don't want my money going there. Everybody can do something.
Yes, absolutely. So, last question.
Okay.
You've been called an attacker. You've been told you're not interested in making things better. You've been given 5 minutes of public comment at a committee meeting where you brought documented evidence and the room closed ranks. Like, how do you keep going?
Uh, I because I am representing over I'm representing 4,300 people. There
Mhm.
are 4,300 people that do not have an opportunity to sit at the table. And I think, there's a woman in her 90s who I love, who calls me regularly and she'll cry on the phone because she's afraid that her son, will not be able to afford the taxes to live in their family home that her father built.
Yes.
I hear from people all the time and I feel that responsibility deeply. It's a responsibility, and I so it's not personal. Like I don't see this as a personal attack. They can attack the position that but I'm not there as Stacy Brown. I'm
Mhm.
there as Counselor Brown, representative of the people, and that's who I'm speaking for. Like I am made up of all the people in my ward, and I have a responsibility to them.
Stacey Brown, thank you. And what you've done here is not complicated. It is not an attack. It is the oldest and most essential act in democratic governance. You read the documents, you follow the money, and you say what you found out loud.
Yep,
It's that simple.
we have to
So
keep doing it.
it's not a personal vendetta against golf. Get that clear.
No, no, no. I actually told some folks I was like, hey, let's go to the golf course. Let's hang out and chat.
Yeah,
I did meet somebody who I disagreed with. We disagreed on social media, and she invited me to hang out with her while she was playing golf. And it was
excellent. All right. Well, thank you for your time, Stacey. I
thank
appreciate it.
you, thank you so much.